representative on city council. Been that for 6 years now. Tonight, the primary purpose is the bear ordinance that is being brought before council. So we'll talk about that. Don't know if it'll take the full hour and a half. If it doesn't, once we're done with that, I'd be happy to answer questions on any other topic that you're interested in. And 7:30 is the time we set. If you gotta leave before that, won't hurt my feelings if you gotta get up and leave. And I'll keep talking as long as people have questions. So 7:30 comes and you wanna leave there also, go for that. I know this is here for your time and for your education. So getting going on the ordinance on don't feed the bears, I guess, or the bear. It's called the bear trash cans, but that's really not an accurate description. So I'm just going to call don't feed the bears. How many of us are in here live west of I-25? All right. So you are going to be in what we're going to set up as the bear management area. A lot of people think if you're in this bear management area, then you're going to have to get a bear-proof trash can. That is not the case. How many of you here have a garage? I mean, if you keep your garbage can in the garage 6 days out of 7, then really this ordinance is not going to affect you at all. You don't have to get a special different trash can. The only thing that is going to affect you, and if you're in an HOA, your HOA probably has the rules anyway, is that you cannot put your trash out from the garage out onto the street until 5 o'clock that morning, and then you got to bring it back in, and I believe it's 7 o'clock in the evening. So it's the day of, just put it out there. So that's, I mean, if you're doing that, and that looked to be about 80% of you, life was not going to be any different for you than it is today. It's going to have some advantages, though. We had one constituent that reached out to me. Their trash pickup is not until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And bears are extremely smart animals. For my neighborhood, and it's Bestway that we got a contractor, Bestway comes on Tuesdays. The bears know when it's Tuesdays. And they come out, and if your trash pickup is not until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the bear pickup is 10 o'clock in the morning. And they'll come out and get that. The one nice thing that this ordinance is going to do, even if you do have a garage and you do put your trash can out only on the morning of, this constituent wanted to be proactive, and she reached out to Bestway and said, I want to get a bear-proof trash can. And Bestway said, we'll only give you one or sell you one if you live in Manitou. Because Manitou Springs already has this ordinance. And I don't know if, I didn't check with Waste Management or Springs Waste or any of the other 5 companies here. I think we have 5 companies in the city. So I didn't check with them, but once this ordinance is passed, my assumption is that then the trash collector companies will sell you or give you. And it's going to be independent with each of your companies. So again, I'll use myself again. Our HOA, 301 homes. We made a contract with Bestway, and I think 290 homes participate in this. And we get a reduced fee. They come on Tuesday. And right now, they give me the $96 trash can. And if the $96 trash can or 96 gallon, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, 96 gallon trash can. Something, it ages out, it gets a rip in there or something like that. I call them out. They come, they take that one away, they give me a new one. And that's just part of my monthly bill. And I think if I lose it, I think it's close to 96, I think it's $80 or $100, somewhere in there. Used to be 60, I think it's up to 80.
Should still be $60.
Should be 60 bucks, so somewhere in there, you gotta pay to replace it. If I want a bear-proof trash can, because Best Way doesn't come till 1 in the afternoon, and I'm between Delmonico and the railroad tracks, so bears occasionally will get down there, but not too often. So I don't have that problem that my constituent had, bear showing up at 10 and Best Way not showing up till 3. You can probably, you're gonna have to talk to your individual waste provider of what they're going to do. With this ordinance, they should provide you one. Now, whether they provide you one and charge you an extra $5 or $10 a month, or rather they make you buy one, or if they let you buy one, my advice to you, if you buy your own, because you can go online and talk to the companies or buy your own, then you should be negotiating with them for a cheaper rate, because they're not providing you that 96 gallon trash can like they're providing you. But that's all going to be between the individual and your waste management company. So the city is not going to get on that.
Yeah, that's my question. The city isn't gonna try to negotiate anything with companies as far as cost.
The Bear Task Force that was going on, and I'll confess I was not a part of it. It had Humane Society, Colorado Department of Parks and Wildlife. It had Richard Scorman as a council rep on there, which is the reason I'm doing this town hall, because I found out about it, in all particulars, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And there were no town hall meetings up on the north side of west of I-25, so that's why we're doing this. There were representatives there from the different waste collection, but the city does not have a franchise on waste collection. So some cities back east, waste collection is part of city government, and they'll contract out. We do not do that here. So that's why you have 5 different providers, and if your HOA or your neighborhood has not gotten together and got a contract for your entire street or everything else, you're gonna get one provider coming on Monday, another one coming on Tuesday, another one coming on Wednesday. That's just the way it is in Colorado Springs, and a couple of constituents in the 6 years I've asked me about that, but there's just, no momentum or movement out there for the city to go out and do that. In fact, you'll find some opposition from it, that the government should not be doing what businesses are able to do. Yes, sir.
My wife is a member of that task force, so
Yeah.
if you want to say what one of the proactive things that the task force
Well, we
is
do
doing.
have some grant money, and so I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be divvied up, but I believe that we plan on using some of that. Am I right on that, Mr. McGee?
So far, the task force secured a grant. I don't remember the exact value or dollar number, but at the time they got the grant, the only ordinance that existed was Manitou Springs. And so they purchased cans to give to Manitou Springs to give to folks that couldn't afford to purchase one. And so if this ordinance goes through, I'm certain they will pursue other grants to do the same thing in Colorado Springs.
Yes, ma'am.
I did talk to Springs Waste and Best Way, and Springs Waste is currently leasing their resistant certified cans for $5 extra a month.
Oh, okay, good.
And Best Way is saying that you have to buy the can. But I think market pressure, when this goes into effect, they're gonna lose customers because of that. So personally, I think we're gonna see some changes.
Yeah,
But
and-
you can get them from Springs Waste for $5 more a month.
And if you go, in together with your neighbors, the best way was at, city council when this got briefed at our work session on August 12th. I think it was August, or it was, no, July, it was in, end of July, the one at the end of July. And they had a bear-proof trash can out there. They were saying they bought maybe 6, 8, 10 at a time. Not a huge volume at once. You know, this has been going on, this initiative, Humane Society has been trying to keep momentum on this for several years. They had several council members, some county commissioners over for breakfast, I think it was in March or April of 18. And Frank McGee back here, who's with our Colorado Department of Parks and Wildlife, gave us some information on trash cans. And I called up one of the companies, and if you were to order 50, it was almost a 50% savings. So, you know, the thing with Best Way that I know of in Springs, hopefully, is it sounds like Springs is a lot more proactive. You know, you gotta get these companies to buy in bulk, and hopefully when this ordinance passes, it will buy in bulk. Yes, sir.
Are the 5 or so trash haulers on board with whatever changes are necessary for their trucks to accommodate these cans?
For the most part, yeah, you know, they make money by the number of trash cans that you pick up in a day. And the problem in the past is the only way to make it a bear-proof trash can in securing the lid was to, put a bungee cord or chain across it, or lock it down, or bar somehow. And that made it more time-consuming for them to have to unlock that before they picked it up. Technology is out there now where there are locks, and they're aftermarket locks, so the people that make the bend get the market and put it in. Even though I'm an engineer, I'm still wrestling with the physics, but something about magnets and gravity that it will unlock as the arm picks it up and dumps it in. So they basically, their time loss is 0. But again, if you live in a home, you have a garage, and you keep it in a garage 6 days out of 7, you do not have to go to the bear-proof trash can. Your regular trash can will suffice.
And are you saying the bag can be in the house, in the garage, or you're saying the trash receptacle has to be in a house or in a fenced area?
Very good question. One of the first paragraphs in this new ordinance defines bear attractant waste. And there's a difference between recyclable cardboard waste, non-food products, and food products. So if you do not live in a garage, or you do not have a house in it, it's been a long day. If you do not, if you're a married man, sometimes you do live in a garage. So if you do not have a garage to keep your trash can in, you can separate your bear attractant waste from your other waste. And you can keep your other waste in the trash can out on your side yard, not fenced in or anything else. And then keep your bear attractant waste in a bag, in someplace in your house, somewhere where the bear can't get to it, and then put that out in the trash can on trash day also. So that's one way. So when I started the meeting, I told you, calling this the bear resistant trash can ordinance is not accurate, because there's 4 different ways you can comply with this ordinance. The garage we already talked about, separating the waste we already talked about, getting the bear trash can is the 3rd way. The 4th way is then to build yourself a little enclosure. So if you don't have the garage, you got a side yard, you go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, buy some 2x4s, buy some cedar planking. You can build, it's gotta be all 4 sides, it's gotta be lockable, it's gotta be high enough that the bear can't get into it. But you can also build yourself an enclosure on the side of your house. As long as you got it protected, it doesn't have to be indoors. For those 6 days of the week that you don't have it out for the trash.
Wouldn't that be like a dumpster? I mean, they just go right over into
Yeah,
your
your
little,
yeah,
they're gonna get their hands.
Actually, people in Manitou do it quite a bit if they don't have room, because it's pretty tight up there, so
Yeah.
you can make them
Are
so
they-
that they.
I don't-
The garage requires a roof.
Oh, it requires a roof?
Requires a roof on there?
Yep.
Is that- Okay.
Ah.
I read the ordinance a couple of times, but I don't have it memorized.
No.
So it does require a roof, okay. So, sheet of plywood over the top of that. Yeah, I don't know how many of you lived here, was it 4 or 5 years ago, the bear down at the German restaurant? The Edelweiss. Yeah, that made all the news and everything else. Yes, ma'am?
I was just gonna say that in addition to where you're keeping the trash, the main thing in my neighborhood is people putting it out the night before. Everyone puts their can out the night before.
Right.
And we have bears.
And this ordinance will prevent that unless you have a bear-proof trash can. Because I had a constituent, a lady reached out to both me and Richard. I think she's actually down in Richard's Foreman's district. But she goes to work before 5 in the morning. She lives, I don't know if it's a bunch of row houses or apartment complex. Wherever she does, they have to go out the back of the alley, and then she has to tote it down to the end of the alley for the trash people to get it. She says, what am I gonna do? I can't do it at 5, I gotta get it out before 5 in the morning. That's the case where then you're gonna have to work with your provider and get yourself the bear-proof trash can. So, yes, ma'am?
It's hard for me to understand how if you garage it for 6 days and then you put it out on trash day, it's okay. I mean, I always garage for 6 days, and every time I put it out, the bear gets in. I have a very strong bungee cord that they can't get off, but they can push it to the side, knock over the bin, and get in. And Waste Management, which is my pickup company, will not accept a bear resistant.
They won't accept bear resistant?
They're the most expensive.
They won't accept it. They don't provide them, and they'll only pick up containers that they provide.
Well, let me defer to somebody on the tech. Are the companies going to allow us to do it now? Are all the companies going to follow in suit?
Yeah,
Follow in
so
line?
Waste Management is
Come
one
on,
of our,
Frank. Yeah.
Waste Management is gonna have these meetings, and they don't, just like Springs Waste or Bestway right now, they're not giving out cans to everybody because they're not required to. But Waste Management does comply with this ordinance, or ones like it, in other communities that have them. So if Waste Management is required to comply with it to do business in town, they're going to comply with it. And to your point, yeah, I mean, we're probably still going, and I think this is one thing too, our research shows that requiring bear-proof containers or, requiring people to not put trash out until the morning of pickup is not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve every bear conflict ever. We're still going to have bears in town. We're still going to have bears knocking over trash cans. But what we know is if we can reduce the amount of food that's available to these bears with this ordinance, is we can reduce those conflicts significantly. And so the research that we've done says by 50%, if we can require people to not put it out to the morning pickup or to have it delivered.
So you're saying that Waste Management or any other company that refuses to pick it up now in a bear resistant will be forced to pick it up in a bear resistant?
Waste Management will have to provide those containers here pretty soon. And we've talked to Waste Management, they've been in these meetings. They have lots of other communities that they work with where they provide these containers. They don't provide them here now because
There's no ordinance.
there's no ordinance.
They certainly don't.
And one thing about this ordinance, so you might get a little pushback from them for a while, because the effective date of this ordinance is 1 March of next year. So if you, and we'll probably do a first reading on this. I don't know if it'll be on our, is it 9 or 10 September? But it's going to be an ordinance, so it's going to have 2 readings. We as council meet the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of every month, except for December, we only meet once. So if it comes to us as a first reading in the 2nd Tuesday of September, then 2 weeks later will be the 2nd reading, and then it goes over to the mayor. He has 5 days to sign it. Then it goes to the city clerk. She has to get it posted, get it in there. So typically, even after council passes it, it's about 2 weeks later before an ordinance is in effect. This ordinance, though, has language in it that says the effective date is 1 March of 2020. So it's going to give time for the companies to do that. How fast they'll be responsive to you, sounds like Springs Waste is locked and loaded, ready to go. Waste Management, you're going to have to call them on February 28th. I don't know. I mean, but again, that's, since we don't have a franchise, this will be between you and your provider. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I can help a little. I'm with the Manitou Springs Bear Smart Task Force, and I'll share a couple of our experiences that may
Please.
help. So our ordinance has only been in effect now about 9 months, and we've seen some beneficial effects that we never even anticipated. One is that our code enforcement officer is really happy about it because he's getting called out less on garbage calls with angry neighbors and that kind of thing. So we think in the long run it's really going to save us money, that he's going to be able to concentrate on other code enforcement issues than just tons and tons of calls he gets about garbage. And people, the other thing we're seeing is it makes better neighbors. People who for a long period of time have had conflicts with their neighbors who, you know, one neighbor keeps their trash in their garage or whatever, another neighbor doesn't have a garage, and, you know, people get upset when there's trash in the middle of the road every day. So that's gone down. As you know, in Manitou we have a single hauler, it's Best Way. I can share what we learned from the Bear Task Force in Boulder, where they have several providers, and that was that community pressure on those haulers made them comply and begin to get trash containers, that kind of thing. You can buy a container from Best Way, you can buy a container from Ace Hardware. Just make sure it's a certified, as it is in the ordinance, a Grizzly certified container, because bears will easily undo all kinds of things. Rip open soft tops, rip off bungee cords, you know, they're really very good at opening trash cans. So we've seen...
All well and good to say that you can just buy a container, and you could. But if your management company won't pick it up, what good does it have?
Well, it's interesting. We were worried about that in Manitou too, but what we found is that they were emptying, you know, other trash cans that people put out and lifting bags up off the street, or, you know, most of the haulers will empty other cans besides a tip can.
Waste Management will not pick up
Yeah.
anything
Well, I
they don't
maybe-
provide.
maybe
They don't provide.
So I think
anything.
what happened in Boulder, and what you need to do is start pressuring them to say, look, I'm gonna have to change
One-
providers if you can't.
Once we have this ordinance,
Done that.
then, and I'm not a lawyer, and I use sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, so don't take it. But from everybody that's been on the task force and from what's been in other cities, as Frank told us, you know, these companies, because they gotta have a business license, they got, to do that, they gotta follow the laws of the city. And the laws of the city are, you put it out or you get a bare trash can. So if we make it mandatory that you have it, which I think is, you'll see like with Best Way in one constituent, they won't sell her a trash can right now once we pass this ordinance. They do it because that's what they're doing in Manitou. So, let me, yeah.
And we have
I'll
fewer
ask
bears,
questions.
and we
Yes,
don't
sir.
know.
Yeah, how will the ordinance be enforced? Will it rely on neighbors calling in and reporting?
Yeah, we do not, and this is something that we're stressing on several ordinances that we're looking at right now. So rather it is, you know, tall weeds in your yard, code enforcement, short-term rentals. Yeah, don't get you started on that. And, you know, any type of stuff that's in code enforcement or noise complaints, you know, that go to the police. Our police do not patrol neighborhoods looking for violation. Code enforcement does not patrol neighborhoods looking for violation. It is really you calling up and complaining about your neighbor. And then they will come out, and then they gotta see it. So call them right away, you know, so that they can come out and see it. And know that that trash can is out there. If you wanna be a nice person and not bother the code enforcement officer, you know, until, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, his or her coming out at 8 o'clock and seeing the trash can out is not a violation. You know, we gotta get the code enforcement officer out to see it out at 7 o'clock the night before.
How about at 4 in the morning?
Or 4 in the morning. There are some
I
things,
think there really has to be that middle of the night kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because people are gonna put them out after 7 o'clock,
and
and you're not gonna see them.
if it's consistent, we have, another issue going on in code enforcement officer, you gave his phone number and said, call me anytime and I'll come out and check. It's a noise issue and they said they'll come out and check the readings.
What about pictures with?
Yeah.
This is a little passive.
So I'm the code enforcement manager of the city, and I'll tell you, when it comes to this issue, what we're really doing is trying to solve a problem and educate people. So pictures are great if you email them to us or you call us and say, hey, my neighbor is consistently putting it out after 7 p.m. We're gonna go out when we get that complaint and talk to the neighbor and say, hey, trash day was yesterday, but we got a complaint, and just so you know, here's the story. If there's a lot of complaints that are coming in and we have, say, hey, my whole neighborhood is putting them out at 7 o'clock at night, we're gonna roll out at 9, 10, 11 at night and start knocking on doors, taking pictures. The problem with you taking pictures and submitting to us is that there's no way for us to know when that photograph was taken, so we can't authenticate your photograph. Violations of this ordinance are administrative fines, which means it does not go to court. So we can't really issue a fine based on your photograph. It's something we have to see. But if you call us and let us know, we're taking this very seriously so that we can make sure that people understand what they're supposed to do.
I'll get you a minute. You were next, and then I'll work my way around. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about, I live in a high-wind area.
Yeah.
Porta potties go down the street.
Okay.
I
You must live
All
on-
the houses are built right now, so we don't have porta potties, but it used to be a problem.
The Vindicator wind tunnel?
Yeah. But, like, I have Best Way, and, you know, there's a lot of windy days. I don't put my trash out until, you know, they come at 10 and I throw it out at 9:30. But if it's windy, I don't put it in the trash can, I just put it in the trash bag. Is that okay?
No, I think the ordinance, even the old ordinance, before we made any changes, is you gotta have it in a trash container.
Because I know what Best Way does is they, you know, when it's windy, and then they have me just put it up next to the garage door, just the bag,
Yeah,
and then they come up and get the bag. If I put the trash can out, goodness knows where my trash can's gonna be.
well, let me, is it legal? No, it's against the ordinance.
to put
And I'll go
bag.
back, somebody's gonna have to complain on you first, okay? And then the first thing we're gonna tell you is don't do that. But if you really wanna be proactive, you know, talk with Best Way, get that bear-proof trash can. You know, if Springs Waste, the one
See,
lady.
my concern with that is I could put it out, you know, at 7 in the morning, but if I'm not there, you know, at 10 o'clock to bring it back in, it may not be there. And I guess, I mean, I have it's not so nice of a story, but lady across the street from me on a windy day had, you know, the trash can, and it blew down the street, and I saw her going up the street with her trash can to her house, and the next time I looked, the lady was flat on the street because the lid blew up, and 2 weeks later, she was dead. So the wind is a big thing.
It looks like somebody has a bear-proof trash can.
Bring it up front so we can look at it and see the
This
difference.
thing is not gonna blow away.
I used to do
Come on
that too,
down.
I used to put it back out, but Springs Waste will
I got it, thanks.
leave it.
It's pretty heavy.
That's why it's that bad. It's approved by-
Just hang around long enough.
But what about your yard place, like you're in a tree cutting?
So this is more,
Or, you know, would it get down the street?
well, there's, like I said, I am an engineer. Porta potty has a lot, you know, once the air gets inside of it, that creates a lot of lift in there. This is not gonna, the wind is not gonna get in there to lift it up. So,
You'll tip it over.
yeah, I might tip it over.
It's empty.
They tip over and they I mean, we have them all over the neighborhood on weekdays. I guess that's my concern, is that, you know.
Well, then if you're fortunate enough that you can put it out at 9:30, then do that.
It's like you need a third car garage to put the can in.
No, I'm.
Smaller car, it's pretty smaller car.
I think they do, I mean, the 96 gallon is the standard, but I think Best Way does offer 30 and 60 gallons, I'm
Not in Bearproof.
not in bear-proof.
So I buy Rarity's company, that they have the centrifugal lock so that when we hook it up to our coder tipper, it will open for us, it makes it easier to service, but right now we're only buying 96s.
Did you bring this?
No,
Okay. So, other questions, yes ma'am?
Yeah, a couple things. One, what is the cost analysis to the homeowner if they have to purchase one of these and then these companies charging more money to deal with this type of can, opening it, all of that?
Well, with these types of locks, I mean, that's been the pushback from the companies from the beginning, was that it's taking us longer per can, and therefore we can service less houses per day, so we're losing money. With these types of technology in there, that argument basically goes away. For the residents, though, it is another $60 a year from Springs Waste. And for some people, that's not much. For other people, that is a lot of money. We realize that. But, you know, the question, that kind of leads to the question, why are we doing this? And I got asked that question, and they quoted me right, but I misspoke, which I've done several times. What was it, 2 years ago? 30 bears? In 2017, 30 bears had to be euthanized because they, 2 strike tests. And this is just in the surrounding area. Are we doing it to save the bears? Saving the bears is a byproduct. We're doing it for the public health and safety of our citizens. is why does a bear get 2 strikes? It gets 2 strikes because they're no longer afraid of humans and they're a threat to the human. So when a bear can find out that it's got its own
Lunchbox.
well, what's the buffet place? Golden Corral. No, your street is the Golden Corral for the bear. And it knows every Tuesday, I'm gonna slaughter down here at 10 o'clock in the morning, and Golden Corral is open. They are no longer, they're gonna lose their fear of humans. And then they become a risk to you. And what happens is, you call in on the bear gets trapped, the bear gets tagged, the bear gets taken down to the New Mexico state line. Give that bear about a week, and he or she will be back in your neighborhood. Then, if you gotta call the bear again, that's 2 strikes, and that bear gets put down. But if we do not give that bear the whole street of great pickings, they're gonna go eat their own food, they're gonna stay out of your neighborhood, and they're gonna keep a healthy respect and fear of humans. So really, the problem is not that we had to put down 30 bears, but that we had 30 bears that now became a threat to our citizens within inside the city of Colorado Springs.
Well,
Which-
putting down 30 bears is a problem too.
I know.
That's a big
You know,
Do you have any more updated, the last, like this past year?
yeah, what, 2018, I don't know what happened on 2018. Casey?
We don't have the exact numbers from last year, but we did have 15 orphan cubs that we had to rehab and put back out because their moms had to get killed for human wildlife conflicts.
Wait a minute, I had,
Yeah,
one?
please.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll stand because my voice won't carry.
well, then stand up.
I did. I did. Do you have to call 444-7000 for code enforcement, or do you have a direct line?
No, there's a different number for code enforcement.
Can you, is it on the paperwork here?
I'm not sure it's on there, but I can tell you what it is. It's 444-7891.
789.
And I'll also, I probably don't have enough cards for everybody, but I'll leave some on the table.
Thank you. And
All right.
one other thing, businesses and their dumpsters have to have some sort of line?
Yes, they do. So, that's kind of getting back to, I did the poll, most of us here have a garage. How many here do not have a garage? Yes, sir. So, your options are the other 3 that I talked about. You can get a bear-proof trash can, you can separate your food and store the food inside the house, or the bear attractant waste. Yes, sir.
I do have a fence, and I have a dog, so can I put the trash can behind the fence with my dog?
You're gonna have to have it enclosed on all 4 sides, and you're gonna have to have a roof over it. So just having a fenced backyard will not suffice. You're gonna have to have that enclosed. And then man at the back, and then I'll get to you.
Okay.
Somebody else had a question back there? Okay, go ahead.
If you're gonna kill a bear for maybe going into your home, or a bear comes real close to you, or whatever the case may be, I think you got it backwards. Because you got the bad guys coming into your home and coming after you. Let's do the same thing to the bad guys. If we're gonna do this to bears, let's do it to the bad guys too. We've got home invasions and everything else.
Okay, that's a separate subject.
If we're gonna kill one.
What I'm hearing, as you think here, is that you can have, first, you can get this bear safe trash can, so you can leave it outside 7 days a week.
Yes,
So, because you don't have any place to keep it, you don't have
Right.
to keep that in your garage.
right.
And the second thing is, figure out how $5 a month, 12 times is gonna cost you. In a year, you can buy your own, and it's yours no matter where you go.
They're more than, $60.
$300
Well,
each.
oh, I thought they were like 200 and something.
Well, if you buy it in bulk,
You get it down to about $225.
you get
It's
a
always better to buy your own and have it forever, wherever for a year, than have it for rent, unless you're only gonna be in town for.
Well, I mean, that's a whole separate argument, you know, why do some people lease cars and why do some people buy cars? I mean, that's an individual decision.
Right.
And you're gonna
Well,
have
that's a choice, I'm just saying, when you live here 50 years, you can save a lot by having your own, but that can sit outside.
that can sit outside. I got, well, you already asked, let me get this. Actually, you had a question. Go ahead.
Me. How much of an education component is attached to this ordinance? It seems like education is perhaps as significant a solution to the problem as that thing. And I'm just curious if the ordinance has any part to it, you know, the city's gonna do this.
So we do a lot of education. I'm out at least once a week in neighborhoods doing education. And with our research so far, it shows that education really doesn't work. In Durango, we had a control site where we did bear-resistant trash cans, and then we did education only. Nothing changed in the education only. 50% of the conflict got reduced with bear-resistant trash cans.
But
It's a bad statement of the.
This is part of the outreach and the education. And then as our code enforcement folks said, they're into education as well. You know, the first time they knock on your door is not, here's a $200 ticket or whatever it is. The first time we knock on the door is, did you know, and can you please clean it up and not do it anymore? It's only when we ask nicely and you thumb your nose at us that then we have more tools in our toolbox to get your attention. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what my question was, piggybacking on the educational campaign. I really like this brochure. I am sure none of my neighbors have ever read this information before. So I would suggest educating by providing this brochure maybe to every home that you're talking about doing this ordinance in, so that they can actually read this. This is nicely done. I think it's great. And it's easy to read, and people will learn from this. And I don't think people know and understand, and that's why my neighbor sent me here to talk to you about that today. So I think an educational component is lacking here, and it would be very sad to say that we're just giving up on education.
Well, we're not giving up on education. That's always still a component, but education alone does not work.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, nobody's seen this.
Well, that came from the Bear Task Force, so we just produced that because we got the ordinance, the final draft last week, so we wanted to make sure it was
And
accurate.
education before ordinance, of course,
Yeah.
right? Let's try to let
Good-
people
Yeah.
know.
Good point. Let me introduce two people on my staff for long-term. Ted here handles all our public relations, so you got a good point. Can you check with the Woodman Edition to see if they'll put that into the Woodman Edition? And then in the back is Sam, who's new to us. He handles constituents. So whether it's this or anything else, my cards are up there. Feel free to call me. I will get back to you. What I'll probably get back to you is that I got it, I heard you. Sam's gonna work it.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but if his neighbor's not going, we'll get it in the Woodman Edition or what's down south, China Mountain Edition.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, it used to be the West Side Pioneer.
He's gone.
I know. Yeah.
You can also get with me too, and we have a team of volunteers that also helps go door to door and talk to
I would go
neighborhoods.
through this whole neighborhood, I mean, you don't need me for that.
West side of, west of I-25, the whole length of the city
Yeah.
is.
Well, I'm just speaking
Lot of
about
real
Mom
estate.
Shadows where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm just saying nobody's seen
We'll get that into the, and make sure they run it a couple of times. Because if they run it now, nobody will remember on the 28th of February. I know I won't remember. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the hummingbird feeders and bird seed. You could do all this like you're supposed to do, but people, I know some of our neighbors will say, well, I've learned to put my hummingbird feeders over here, and birds, I put my bird feeder because the bears don't bother.
Right.
Does that still attract the bear even though they can't reach it?
Oh,
It
yeah.
does.
So what do you do about that?
You can contact CPW, and then we have our own regulations and stuff that we can fine them for attracting bears and stuff with hummingbird feeders.
But this might be an educational component as well, that maybe you need to add on that, or a
Yeah.
website, or next
We
door.
have websites and
Put it on next door,
and stuff like
put it
that,
on
too.
Facebook, put it on all these.
As I mentioned, the Humane Society came to me probably about 2 or 3 years. They've been working to get this done for many, many years. And I think the draft from 2 or 3 years ago included bird feeders, included hummingbird or bird seed containers that they could only be put out during the winter months. Included restrictions on, I don't think it, no, I take that back, I don't think it covered hummingbird feeders, but.
You only have your hummingbirds in the winter. And we took
No,
ours,
you got them now.
we took ours down, our bird feeder, that we
Yeah,
got not too far, but still, we've never had any problem, but, you know, it's not good. But everyone would say, well, they're not gonna bother that, well, otherwise, West Side can't have any hummingbirds. They can't have any
Now,
birds.
the hummingbirds and the bird seeds you can put out in the winter. You know, 'cause what happens is, you know, I don't care where you hang it, the squirrel's gonna get them. You know, and squirrels are very messy eaters. So underneath the bird feeder, and I know this from firsthand experience, and secondhand, my wife does. So you're gonna have a bunch of bird seed on the ground, the bear's gonna come, look that up, know that that's a spot for food, and that's gonna be on his or her regular route. And so that's common safe practice if it's, is it a CPW that can only be out in the winter?
So it's not just out in the winter, so if we get like a complaint about somebody, like a bear getting into bird feeders or somebody, we'll first send a letter, a certified letter, telling them that it's a warning, you know, put your bird feeders away and such. And then if we get continuous reports about it, then we'll write a citation and stuff.
And there, as you know, we passed an ordinance earlier in the summer against feeding the wildlife. There was a Colorado Parks and Wildlife ordinance already in place that says you can't feed the wildlife. That's a $50 fine. The city ordinance now is a $500 fine. So we gave it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I got a question about that. $500 based on a time schedule of 05 to 1900, right? It's an
it's not $500
administrative fee. How does the fee go up every time administratively? Or is it really a fine?
No, it's a fee. We're talking two different things here.
Is it a fee or a fine? Simple question.
No, it's not a simple question.
Is it a fee or a fine? It says it's a fee.
What I was talking, may I finish?
Please.
I was talking about feeding the wildlife.
Right. And then you said it's a $500 assessment fee. That's what the proposal is. Every time, 100, 250, then 500.
That's for this bill.
So,
Two different things.
May I finish? You're coming in hostile.
I am. I'm really steamed about this, and
That's
I'll
good to
continue.
know. But please give me the courtesy of let me answer your
Please,
question. On the wildlife, and I have to double check, but I believe that is a fine that we put in there that is feeding the wildlife is a $500 fine. This one, it is an administrative fee, but we have the right. There's some people, $100 is nothing, and they'll gladly pay the $100 each time. There are numerous regulations that we have within inside the city that if you are a continuing person that violates that regulation, that we escalate the penalty.
Okay, so it's a penalty, not a fee, because I'm reading it, it says administrative fee.
That's what the language is.
Okay, so why don't you be honest with the public and just call it a penalty? Why the word jumbling around? Just call it a penalty. Just call it a penalty, that's what it is. You don't have to bamboozle us. It's a penalty.
I don't think anybody
Right? So the other issue is, you gotta have your trash out after 5 and pick it up before 7. Is that true? That's what the proposal is? That's what it says here?
No, only if you're not in the bear-proof trash. Sir, you came in late. I've talked about 4 of these.
And I'm sorry that the Golden Hills published the incorrect time, but it says in here that you have to have your trash out after 5 and picked up before 7.
Only
If it's a
if
non-bear-proof,
only-
right?
It's not there.
And most people have non-bear-proof trash cans. So the person that commutes to Denver for work, how are they gonna pick it up before 7? Or the person that commutes to Pueblo, or the person that commutes to Canyon City? What about the Department of Defense employee who works 12-hour shifts and has to leave at 4:30 and doesn't get home till 7? What about the military personnel who's downrange and can't meet those times? You're telling me they're gonna get a $1,000 fine every single day because they can't be the 5 o'clock and the 7 o'clock?
We've been through this, you should have.
We talked about all this earlier.
I'm sorry, I really apologize. I'm so sorry for being late, but that's what this says.
That's not what that says.
No.
And
That's how it reads.
since you were late, the other people, let me finish up with them. I'll be gladly.
I'll wait.
happy
Thank
to
you for your
make
time. I mean, I apologize for barging in like this, but I'll wait.
So any other questions on the bears?
I work a lot with the Parks Department, and they are kind of stepping up and trying to put bear-proof cans in a number of our open spaces and parks, because that has been a problem for a number of years. And I just thought it was kind of ironic that someone came to complain about the bear-proof cans because it was too hard to open to put there. So, I appreciate you trying to do the right thing for our community, for the wildlife, because eating garbage is going to kill the bears, literally and eventually. And so I applaud you all for all the work.
Human food is not the natural.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous. So, and it's the right thing to do. It's the best thing for our community.
I just wanted to mention that our officer from Colorado Parks and Wildlife mentioned that there were 15 orphan cubs this last year. I am a friend of one of only 3 wildlife rehabilitators in Colorado that helps any of the bears, the mountain lion cubs, some of the fawns whose mothers have been killed. So the cub's fate would not be so kind if she weren't able to do that. So we really need to help their mothers. These cubs don't deserve to be orphans. They need our help. And only 3 wildlife rehabilitators that do this, and she and her husband are retired, beautiful souls, so humble and giving teachers. They have done this for 35 years with their own money.
Let me go back to get something on track. Question was asked, and I kind of answered it, but then skipped over the implications. Are people with dumpsters going to be required to follow this as well? And it is. And I think as we see here, for a lot of us, it is zero impact because we live in a home that has a garage and we can put it out. Anybody here live in an apartment complex, or anybody have a business where they have their own trash container?
I don't have a business, but I work at a business that, we were talking about that today at work, that
Okay.
we're gonna have to get a different trash can.
And what do you see the impact, how are businesses taking this? I mean,
Well, I think because of what you said, that things have changed since the old days. We have a can at the business that lids flip up because they were gonna charge us extra for the one with the bar and the lock. But now, maybe there's something different, and there won't be a huge upcharge, because there was a huge upcharge.
I don't think,
So there's two
industrial
types
trash-
of, you have metal lids, you know, and a lot of people in Manitou, businesses in Manitou have metal lids and a lock bar or a centrifugal lock that drops when they dump the can. Those are the two options, basically.
We've done most of waste, and it's got plastic lids, and they blow up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're gonna have to get a new one.
Now, let me, the companies that have the lock bar, do they unlock it the day of trash pickup, or does it?
Typically, I put my lock on it, my driver has the key, and when he gets there, he can unlock it, dump the can, and then relock it back up.
Okay. And who was?
Oh, I was gonna say something, just as using Manitou Springs as an example, I've only had 3 different bear conflicts in there, and it was about a bear cub getting into chickens. So I haven't had any, like, bears getting too used to people or anything this year. And so that's a huge difference from previous years.
Is
And that's
that
just
because
one
of the water and the better conditions for the bears, or is that because of the locking can?
I mean, I've had tons of issues in the springs with bears still, with trash cans and stuff. So just it probably has some to do with having better conditions this year and stuff, but I think it's a lot because businesses and people
But
have
your
it.
assessment is the locking cans make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, or if, it's not just locking cans, there's different things that you can do to comply with the ordinance. It's not just having a bear resistant trash
Just
can.
people being more aware
Yeah.
Yeah,
about their
absolutely.
trash and just not.
Any other questions on this thing?
I have a question. How many bears do we estimate that live in this area? I know probably south has more than up north, but I mean, what kind of population do you think we have?
So we kind of are doing a new system this year because our old way of keeping track of all the bears in the city, it was on paper, people wouldn't turn it in and blah, blah, blah. So now we have an app that we've been using to keep track of all the different bears. So we'll have better data in the future about how many bears are living here. But right now, we don't have a good estimate about how many bears live in each area
I've
in the
seen
west side.
4 different bears in the last month in my neighborhood, Chelsea.
What can a natural habitat support without trash?
2 of
It
them are waiting.
really
What is
depends.
the range on say?
It really depends.
Thanks to the 3G.
And being in the city, it's different. Because all the bears can't just go in the woods.
Any
We're
other
always gonna
questions
have
on
some
this
bears in the
thing?
city.
Where do they hibernate?
I don't know, and
What was the question?
Where do the bears hibernate, and do they hibernate in the same place?
So they might hibernate in the same place, and some of the bears, they go into the woods to hibernate, but we do have bears that hibernate within cities. Sometimes they go under people's decks, which we don't want, but they hibernate in culverts and in any place where they can fit into.
How about any place in the Garden of the Gods?
So that's not really my district, so I don't know about specifics, and we don't go out and check every den. We don't know where all the dens are at, we just know about the ones we get called on and stuff.
I can answer the thing on the Garden of the Gods. You mean in the Garden of the Gods Park? We have had them in the past, but as of last year, the one den that we knew about was vacant.
Yeah, and going off of hibernation, everybody knows bears hibernate, right? There are bears that sometimes when they have a continuous food source such as trash, they will not go into hibernation or their hibernation will be shorter. We have bears out in January causing problems this year.
We did last
they will hibernate 6 days a week. I think that's about it on the bears. Thank you very much for coming. I hope this has been informative. My cards are there any other issues that I can talk to you about? The fence. Say again?
The fence.
What fence?
The one that was voted on last year.
Oh, flying W.